If she's telling you her problems, she doesn't want you to fix them. Let that sink in for a moment. Every instinct you have as a man, every fiber of your masculine wiring that screams solve, protect, provide, is about to be tested in ways you never imagined. She's not looking for your solutions. She's testing something far deeper, something most modern men have completely forgotten exists. She's testing your frame, your emotional sovereignty, your ability to be the mountain that remains unmoved while the storms of her emotions crash against you. Most men fail this test spectacularly, and they don't even know they're being tested. They rush in with advice, strategies, 10-point action plans, thinking they're being helpful, thinking they're demonstrating value. Meanwhile, she's watching them crumble under the weight of her emotional world, watching them scramble desperately to make her problems disappear, and she's losing respect for them with every word they speak. This isn't about being cold or uncaring. This is about understanding a fundamental truth that Marcus Aurelius knew 2,000 years ago when he wrote in his Meditations that we cannot control external events, only our responses to them. When a woman shares her emotional turbulence with you, she's not asking you to control her external world. She's asking you to demonstrate mastery over your internal one. Before we dive deeper into this ancient wisdom applied to modern relationships, let me be clear about something. If you're looking for soft, comfortable dating advice that tells you what you want to hear, this isn't the place. But if you're ready for the hard truths that will fundamentally transform how you show up as a man, if you're ready to understand the deeper psychology at play when women test your emotional fortitude, then subscribe to this channel right now. This is where boys become men, where modern weakness transforms into ancient strength, where you learn to embody the Stoic principles that create unshakable masculine presence. Think about the last time a woman in your life came to you with her problems. Maybe it was your girlfriend complaining about her toxic coworker for the 100th time. Maybe it was a woman you're dating, telling you about the drama with her friends. What did you do? If you're like 90% of men, you immediately went into problem-solving mode. You offered suggestions, you mapped out strategies, you tried to logic your way through her emotions. And what happened? She got more upset. She told you that you don't understand. She pulled away. And you were left confused, frustrated, wondering why she even brought it up if she didn't want your help. Here's what you missed. When she shares her problems, she's not presenting you with a puzzle to solve. She's presenting you with an emotional experience to witness. She's inviting you into her inner world, not to rearrange the furniture, but to stand steady while she processes the chaos. Seneca understood this deeply when he wrote that the willing are led by fate, the reluctant are dragged. When you frantically try to fix her problems, you're being dragged by her emotions. When you stand present and grounded, you lead by example, showing her what emotional sovereignty looks like. The modern man has been conditioned to believe that his value comes from his utility, from his ability to solve problems and provide solutions. This conditioning runs so deep that when faced with female emotion, he panics. He thinks if he can't fix it, he's failing. He thinks if she's upset, it's his responsibility to make her happy. This is the thinking of a boy, not a man. A man understands what Epictetus taught, that we are not responsible for what happens to us, but we are completely responsible for how we respond. When she shares her problems, she's not making you responsible for solving them. She's watching to see if you can remain responsible for your own emotional state while witnessing hers. Picture this scene, and I guarantee you've lived it. She comes home from work, clearly agitated. She starts telling you about how her boss undermined her in a meeting, how she's not being valued, how the whole situation is unfair. The weak man immediately launches into corporate strategy mode. Have you documented everything? Have you talked to HR? Maybe you should schedule a meeting with your boss's boss. He thinks he's being supportive, but watch her face. Watch as her frustration shifts from her boss to him. Watch as she says those words that cut deep into his confused soul. You're not listening to me. You don't understand. I don't need you to fix this. Now picture the same scene with a man who understands the Stoic principles we're discussing. She comes home agitated, starts sharing about her boss. He doesn't jump into solution mode. He doesn't panic at her emotional state. He listens with presence, not with the nervous energy of someone trying to solve an equation, but with the grounded energy of a mountain that can hold space for the storm. He might say something like, "That sounds incredibly frustrating," or, "I can see why that would upset you." He's not dismissing her emotions, but he's also not being pulled into them. He's the lighthouse standing firm while the waves crash around him, providing a fixed point of reference in her emotional sea. This is where most men completely misunderstand what's happening. They think being supportive means joining her in her emotional chaos. They think empathy means feeling everything she feels, getting angry at her boss with her, validating every aspect of her emotional experience. But this isn't support. This is codependence. This is two people drowning together instead of one person throwing the other a life preserver. Marcus Aurelius wrote that the best revenge is not to be like your enemy. When you join her in her emotional reactivity, you become like the very chaos she's trying to process. You offer no contrast, no stability, no masculine polarity for her feminine energy to dance with. The woman in your life doesn't need another girlfriend to commiserate with. She has plenty of those. What she needs, what she's testing for whether she consciously knows it or not, is masculine presence that can hold space for her emotions without being consumed by them. She needs to know that when her world feels like it's falling apart, you remain solid. When her emotions are flooding, you are the high ground. When she's spinning in anxiety or frustration, you are the still point around which she can orbit until she finds her center again. This isn't about being emotionless or cold. The Stoics weren't emotionless. They felt deeply, but they weren't ruled by their feelings. They understood the difference between experiencing an emotion and being controlled by it. When she shares her problems, you can feel compassion, you can feel empathy, you can even feel frustration on her behalf, but you don't let these feelings control your behavior. You don't let them pull you into reactive patterns. You remain the captain of your own ship, even while acknowledging the storm she's navigating. Let me paint you another picture, one that will illuminate this dynamic perfectly. A man and woman have been dating for 6 months. She texts him throughout the day about various dramas and problems. Her roommate is being passive aggressive. Her mother is being controlling. Her car is making weird noises. Each time he drops everything to respond with solutions. He researches apartment listings for her. He drafts responses to her mother. He sends her mechanics' phone numbers. He thinks he's being the perfect supportive boyfriend. Meanwhile, she's losing attraction to him day by day. Why? Because he's demonstrating that her emotional state controls his behavior. He's showing her that he has no center of his own, that he's simply a reactive element in her emotional weather system. Now imagine if he understood what we're discussing today. When she texts about her roommate, he might respond with acknowledgement but not panic. That sounds frustrating, babe. We can talk about it tonight if you want. He doesn't drop everything. He doesn't go into emergency response mode. He acknowledges her experience while maintaining his own rhythm, his own priorities, his own frame. When they talk that evening, he listens fully, but from a place of groundedness, not from a place of anxious problem solving. He's the oak tree that she can lean against, not another leaf being blown around by the same wind. Seneca wrote that every new thing excites the mind, but a mind that seeks truth turns from the new and seeks the old truths. The old truth here, the ancient wisdom that modern men have forgotten, is that masculine and feminine energies are complementary, not identical. When she brings you her chaos, she doesn't need you to match it. She needs you to balance it. She doesn't need you to amplify her emotional frequency. She needs you to provide a different frequency that allows her to find harmony. This is the dance of polarity that creates attraction, respect, and deep emotional connection. But here's where it gets even deeper, and this is something most relationship coaches won't tell you because it's not politically correct. When she tells you her problems, she's not just testing your emotional stability. She's testing your hierarchical position in the relationship. She's determining whether you're a leader worth following or just another emotional child she needs to manage. Every time you scramble to fix her problems, you're communicating that her emotional state is more important than your own centeredness. You're placing her emotions above your own sovereignty. You're essentially saying, your feelings are my emergency, which translates in her subconscious to, you are the leader here, not me. This dynamic plays out in 1,000 subtle ways that most men never notice. She mentions she's stressed about planning a trip. The weak man immediately takes over all the planning, thinking he's being helpful. But what he's actually communicating is that her stress controls his behavior, that her discomfort is unbearable to him, that he cannot tolerate her experiencing any negative emotion. The grounded man might say something like, I know you'll figure it out. If you want my input on anything specific, just ask. He's available but not anxious. He's supportive but not controlling. He maintains his position as the mountain while allowing her to navigate her own challenges. Marcus Aurelius wrote about the inner citadel, the unconquerable fortress of the soul that remains untouched by external circumstances. This is what you must become in your relationships. Not a cold, distant fortress that locks her out, but an unconquerable presence that she can trust will remain stable no matter what emotional weather she brings. When you achieve this, something magical happens. She starts to feel safe, bringing you her deepest fears, her wildest emotions, her most chaotic thoughts, because she knows you won't be destabilized by them. She knows you won't panic, won't try to fix her, won't make her emotions about you. This is the paradox that breaks most men's brains. The less you try to fix her problems, the more she trusts you with them. The less reactive you are to her emotions, the more she respects your presence. The less you make her feelings your emergency, the more she sees you as her emotional anchor. This isn't about being unsupportive or dismissive. It's about understanding that true support sometimes means being the stable ground she can push against to find her own strength rather than the crutch that prevents her from developing it. Think about the metaphor of teaching someone to swim. If every time they struggle in the water, you immediately pull them out, they never learn to swim. They become dependent on you for rescue. But if you remain calm at the pool's edge, encouraging but not panicking, available but not anxious, they learn to trust their own ability to stay afloat. This is what you're doing when you maintain frame while she shares her problems. You're showing her that her emotions aren't emergencies, that she's capable of navigating them, that you trust her strength enough not to rush in and save her from every discomfort. Epictetus taught that we should not seek for things to happen as we wish, but wish for things to happen as they do, and we will be happy. When applied to relationships, this means not wishing she wouldn't have problems or emotions, but accepting them as a natural part of her human experience. When you fight against her emotional reality, trying to fix or change it, you create resistance. When you accept it while maintaining your own centeredness, you create space for her emotions to flow through and transform naturally. Here's a hard truth that will revolutionize how you show up in relationships. Her problems are not your problems. Her emotions are not your responsibility. Her happiness is not your job. This might sound harsh, but it's actually the most loving position you can take. When you make her problems your problems, you rob her of her agency. When you make her emotions your responsibility, you communicate that she's not capable of managing them herself. When you make her happiness your job, you become a performing monkey, constantly dancing for her approval rather than standing in your own authentic power. The Stoic man understands that each person is responsible for their own emotional state. He can influence, he can support, he can hold space, but he cannot and should not try to control another person's inner world. Seneca wrote that no one can have a peaceful life who thinks too much about lengthening it. Similarly, no man can have a peaceful relationship who thinks too much about managing his woman's emotions. The more you try to control her emotional state, the more anxious you become, and the more she feels your anxiety rather than your strength. Let me give you a practical example that will crystallize this concept. A couple has been together for 2 years. She's going through a difficult time at work, considering a career change, feeling lost and uncertain. The weak man would either try to solve it for her, sending job listings, arranging networking meetings, creating 5-year plans, or he would join her in her uncertainty, becoming equally anxious about her situation, constantly asking if she's okay, checking in every hour. Both responses fail the test of masculine presence. The grounded man takes a different approach entirely. He recognizes that her career uncertainty is her journey to navigate. He might say something like, I see you're going through a challenging transition. I'm here if you want to talk through anything, but I trust you to figure out what's right for you. Then, and this is crucial, he continues living his own life with purpose and direction. He doesn't hover anxiously. He doesn't make her career crisis the center of his universe. He remains available but not absorbed, supportive but not consumed. This communicates to her that even when her world feels uncertain, his presence remains certain. He becomes the fixed point she can orient herself around while she navigates her transformation. This principle extends far beyond just listening to her problems. It permeates every aspect of the relationship. When she's indecisive about where to eat, the weak man either becomes frustrated or delegates all his power to her, saying, "Whatever you want is fine." The grounded man makes a decision and leads, understanding that she can express her preference if she has one, but he's not going to collapse into indecision with her. When she's anxious about the future, the weak man either dismisses her concerns or joins her in anxiety. The grounded man acknowledges her feelings while maintaining his own vision and direction. Marcus Aurelius wrote that the universe is change, our life is what our thoughts make it. When you understand this in the context of relationships, you realize that her emotional states are like weather patterns, constantly changing, constantly in flux. Your job isn't to control the weather or to be controlled by it. Your job is to be the mountain that remains steady through all seasons. Sometimes she brings sunshine, sometimes she brings storms, but the mountain remains unchanged in its essential nature. This is the embodiment of masculine frame that women instinctively test for and deeply respect when they find it. The modern world has conditioned men to believe that being supportive means being soft, that being understanding means being weak, that being a good partner means sacrificing your own centeredness for her comfort. This conditioning has created a generation of men who are emotional chameleons, constantly shifting to match their woman's emotional state, thinking this is love. But it's not love, it's codependence. It's neediness. It's the behavior of a boy seeking mommy's approval, not a man standing in his power. When she tells you her problems and you maintain your groundedness, you're not being unsupportive. You're being the most supportive thing possible, a stable reference point in her emotional experience. You're showing her what emotional regulation looks like. You're demonstrating that it's possible to witness chaos without becoming chaotic, to feel deeply without being controlled by feelings, to care without collapsing. This is the kind of support that actually helps her grow, that actually strengthens her, that actually deepens her respect and attraction for you. Here's what happens when you master this principle. She starts coming to you not because she needs you to fix things, but because your presence helps her find her own clarity. She starts sharing more deeply because she trusts you won't panic or try to control her experience. She starts respecting you at a level that transcends surface attraction because she sees in you what Epictetus called the invincible human being, someone who cannot be frustrated by anything outside their own control. But let me be clear about what this doesn't mean. This doesn't mean being a stone wall who never engages emotionally. This doesn't mean dismissing her feelings or minimizing her experience. This doesn't mean checking out or being unavailable. The Stoic man is fully present, fully engaged, fully aware. He just isn't reactive. He doesn't let her emotional state determine his behavioral response. He chooses his response from a place of centeredness rather than from a place of emotional contagion. Seneca taught that the mind that is anxious about future events is miserable. The man who anxiously tries to prevent his woman from ever experiencing problems or negative emotions is creating his own misery. He's fighting an unwinnable war against the natural ebb and flow of human experience. The man who accepts that problems and emotions are part of life, who maintains his center while she navigates hers, finds peace even in the midst of relational storms. This is the ultimate test of masculine development. Can you remain grounded when she's in chaos? Can you maintain your frame when she's testing it? Can you be the lighthouse when she's the storm? Most men fail this test because they've never been taught that it exists. They think relationships are about making each other happy, about solving each other's problems, about never letting your partner experience discomfort. But real relationships, deep relationships, transformative relationships are about something else entirely. They're about two people maintaining their individual sovereignty while choosing to share their lives. When you understand this principle and start embodying it, you'll notice immediate changes. She'll start respecting you more, not because you're doing more for her, but because you're being more in yourself. She'll start trusting you more, not because you're fixing all her problems, but because you're demonstrating that you can handle her full emotional spectrum without losing yourself. She'll start desiring you more, not because you're performing for her approval, but because you're standing in your authentic masculine power. The ancient Stoics understood something that modern psychology is just beginning to rediscover. Emotional regulation is attractive. Self control is powerful. The ability to maintain your center while others lose theirs is the mark of a developed human being. When she tells you her problems, she's giving you an opportunity to demonstrate these qualities. She's giving you a chance to show her who you really are when the social masks come off and raw emotion enters the room. Every interaction where she brings you her problems is a defining moment. Will you collapse into her frame, scrambling to make her feel better, desperate to fix everything? Or will you stand in your own frame, present and compassionate but unshaken, available but not anxious? The choice you make in these moments determines the entire trajectory of your relationship. It determines whether she sees you as her emotional leader or her emotional dependent, whether she respects you as a man or manages you as another child. As we reach the culmination of this truth, understand that what we're talking about transcends simple relationship advice. We're talking about becoming the kind of man who cannot be destabilized by external circumstances, who maintains his center regardless of the emotional weather around him, who embodies the principles of Stoicism not as a philosophy but as a way of being. When you achieve this, you don't just improve your relationships, you transform your entire existence. You become what Marcus Aurelius called a wrestler with life, someone who can engage fully with whatever comes without being thrown off balance. The woman in your life, whether you realize it or not, is your greatest teacher in this process. Every time she brings you her emotions, she's giving you an opportunity to practice maintaining your frame. Every time she shares her problems, she's testing your ability to remain centered. Every time she creates drama or chaos, she's unconsciously helping you develop the very qualities that will make you invaluable, not just to her, but to everyone in your life. She's your training ground for becoming emotionally invincible. Remember this truth, burn it into your consciousness, let it transform how you show up in every interaction. When she tells you her problems, she's not asking you to fix them. She's asking you to be the mountain that remains unmoved by the storm. She's asking you to demonstrate that masculine presence is still alive in a world of emotional boys. She's asking you to be the man who can hold space for her full humanity without losing his own center. This is the ultimate test of masculine development. And when you pass it, you don't just win her respect, you win your own. You become the man you were meant to be, grounded in ancient wisdom, standing firm in modern chaos, embodying the eternal principles that make a man truly powerful. The mountain doesn't move for the storm. The mountain remains, and in remaining, it teaches the storm that chaos is temporary, but presence is eternal.